The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Terra Turas. My name is Michael. On my left, joining me here this evening on my left on the screen is Mr. Jared Walters. And in the middle is Reverend Pat Beers.
Hi, everybody.
We've got an interesting show coming up this evening. It is one of the things that it is odd. We deal with this topic quite often in any kind of reading, in any situation. If we are going places, we're constantly dealing with this, but we've never really addressed it. So tonight's topic is attachments. And we're talking about all kinds of attachments that you might pick up more on the metaphysical side of life. So that's what we're going to be discussing here through the next little bit of time. Again, this week, as we go along, if you have an interest in asking our panel, the three of us, a question that may be related to or near our topic tonight, if you want to be able to ask your question to our panel and have us answer, put in X and the number 1 by your name in the chat room so that we know that you are interested in participating. And then we will have a kind of a random drawing of people that we'll pick one out from everybody that puts the X1 by their name as we go along. Jared, since you're on the left, I'm just going to start and go left to right. So this evening, we're going to start with you. Tell me in our topic arena, if you would, how would you describe an attachment?
Well, one of the best ways that I can describe an attachment is first we need to look at this is usually spiritual. This is usually a earthbound spirit of sorts. Or in some cases, it can also be another dimensional being that can attach that was never human. Mm-hmm. But 9 times out of 10, it's usually a earthbound spirit that attaches, in essence, like Velcro to you because they favor and like your energy in a lot of ways. But I was thinking about that earlier, like, okay, what is attachment? How do you describe this to somebody? But if anybody remembers or has seen Beetlejuice, and we know that all the characters, the main characters are ghosts. You have Michael Keaton's character. It's one of the Baldwins. I can't never remember his first name. And forget the other character's name. Anyways, there's the scene where they're in the graveyard and they come across Beetlejuice for the first time. And the part where Beetlejuice jumps on the back of the other character's name is Adam. And he's just hanging onto his back and he's got the same shirt that he has and whatnot. It's just like, that's what I think of an attachment. When a spirit jumps on your back and is basically just attaches themselves to you. So that, if you can get a visual of that, that's what I, in my opinion, think that an attachment is.
Pat, I'm going to ask you because you're right there in the middle of everything. When we say attachment.
I've always felt that they're attracted to our light, to our energy. I had one when I was just beginning my path on this where I could talk to people about it and study and everything. And I had a gentleman who had started, he was Akron Savings Bank, then he was Trans Ohio, then he was Great Northern, then he became First Merit, and it's now Huntington. He had been dead I'm talking 1978, 79. He'd been
Wow.
dead since the 50s. And he had a son, but he was always working, and his wife was mad at him, and they had like a 7 or 8 year old son, and she divorced him. And she later died. And I guess I was a dead ringer for his ex wife, and he attached himself to me, and I'm seeing this. I'm so new to this, I don't know what guides are. I don't know. And we had one of those chest on chest that you had the shelves for your sweaters and everything, and you had the drawers. I got this tall skinny figure standing there all the time. I'm just finding out about guides. I'm thinking this guy's guide. And my teacher said, don't think so. But he didn't know anything more except to tell me that. He didn't know how to deal with them. And at that point, Marianne Wykowski was just becoming fairly well known. And she came to my house and got rid of him for me. And then we had a woman that was attached to the land our home was built on. It was the last lot to be built on. And she attached herself to it. It was brothers who owned this farm. When the parents died, they wanted to subdivide it. She said no. She fought them tooth and nail. I don't think she's even cold in the ground yet. There was a subdivision here. And so
Wow.
ours lost the last lot left, and she attached herself to that. Yeah. It was interesting because my dogs would not go near the back door. I live in a split level, and they would only go halfway between the stairs to the downstairs and the door. And the cat would go over in that corner and just stretch at the door like she was scratching something. I guess this woman hated animals in the house, and she tormented our animals all the time. So
Wow.
very interesting.
It, I guess, and I have to put it this way: I agree, and I work with things in the very same passion that you do, and that Jared does, and yet I keep finding myself adding more just energetic in today's world, kind of like little globs, little marbles, little something that kind of float around, for lack of better words, because negative energy is out there, whether it's somebody's bad attitude, whether it is somebody's being upset, angry, whatever that is, that energy is still floating around. So if somebody's out there having just an absolute cow in what they are saying, not only is that energy coming to the person that they're talking to, but it floats around a little bit, you
Yep.
know?
It's
So
floating around for
it,
everybody to experience.
yeah, and as you go walking, just like if you were in the mall and you go walking through the mall, you inadvertently from time to time will pick up a little piece of a negativity energy or a piece of a positive piece of energy that goes with it. And sometimes they balance themselves out, but you get around Christmas time or holidays or when it's really packed, the chances are that it's going to be more negative than it is positive. And then you get home and you feel like, ugh. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that you want to do is you want to jump in the shower. You've got to find a way to clean yourself off, and you don't know why.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep thinking of all the spiritual material and things like that, but then I think about this little globs of energy and how they would build up over a period of time. Jared, I'm going to go back to you, and I'm kind of playing with the back end of all the graphics and everything as we're going along.
Yeah.
Um, when you find someone that is either aware or not aware, but you can see, for lack of better words, the entity that is kind of clinging to them, as you had mentioned, like that little thing that's stuck on the middle of your back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you tell people? Do you kind of wait to see what it's doing? And then once they respond to that, how might you help them remove it?
Good question. Attachments are one of those things you'll find in the metaphysical world. You have all sorts of people, you have all sorts of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, does this idea match with me? Does it not resonate with me? What is it? And sometimes when you try to go up to somebody and say, hey, you have a spirit attachment on your back, that could be kind of scary, especially if they're not open to any of this stuff. So randomly, ethically, do I go up to somebody and say, hey, I see this on you, you need to figure out some way to remove it? 9 times out of 10, they're going to look at you like you are crazy. So, no, I wouldn't necessarily do that unless somebody comes and says, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Is there anything I can do or that you might be able to help me with in figuring out what it is? So then we may go into that whole end of, you have an attachment, something that's manipulating you, something that's influencing and allowing you to change your moods and your thoughts and whatnot, so that way the earthbound spirit in essence is getting that emotional energy that it needs to be able to do things. They find your energy favorable. So in that case, there are lots of different things you can do. And sometimes energy healing works in order to allow your higher dimensional beings like the angels, Archangel Michael. You might have to do some cord cutting. um, some sort of energy healing where you're using guides and angels and ascended masters to help come in and just help to remove this for you. So you hold that space for them in a lot of ways. You can sage, you can smudge the person. That's another way of doing it, because the spirit does not find the sage or the energetic property of the sage to be favorable, so they may disattach themselves to get away from it, but they can always come back. So a lot of it has to deal with the person's well-being, their mindset in a lot of ways, and why this attachment is, in essence, like a insect, like a vector feeding off a host, like a mosquito feeding off the blood of its prey. It's feeding off that energy. So, you have to get some repellent. You have to
And,
protect yourself,
and that's a really good point, being able to understand where it's getting its the food source from.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, I'm going to cross over to you for a second because and again, simply because you've been doing this for a long period of time, we typically associate little minor things that might attach. You know, um, I don't even know if there was really a term for it, as in how do you present? Yes, it's just a small spiritual kind of thing. To hi, you've got something demonic sticking out of your back. There's no way for me to describe to the audience this difference, and yet all of us know that when we run into somebody, if they have something that is very serious in nature that is attached to them, you can feel, it's minor, it's the mosquito bite, it's this, or it's oh my God, I really don't want to talk to this person, but I need to. How do you personally differentiate between that?
I've been very fortunate that I have not encountered nasty, really nasty. I'm also very fortunate in that I have a few friends who I don't. I think most of us are not even aware we have an attachment, unless it's like I can't sleep, I can't. Um, I'm not hungry, or oh my gosh, I'm wound up tighter than an 8-day clock. It's got to be something like that for me. And I will sit down and I will talk to Saint Michael, and I will say, Saint Michael, I don't know what's going on, but I ask that you cut any and all cords, remove any attachments that may be with me. I would like you to cauterize the ends of the cord so they cannot reconnect. And please take this attachment to where it needs to be, where it can find peace. And like I said, there are times I don't even know that I have an attachment, and I'll call either Jenny Clark, or I'll call Linda Trenta, and I'll say, what the heck is going on? And I'll say, oh, you got an attachment. And so they both are very good about doing that for me. I guess I'm very protected in the fact that I do not get, and I get, well, the other thing is, I'm going to say I have sense enough that when I know it's going to be something that's beyond my capabilities or more than I want to deal with, I will call someone else and say, hey, I got this feeling about this. I don't feel qualified to deal with it. What do you suggest? Or would you, you know? And so either they can take care of it, or they'll say, oh, no, we got to get da da. And they'll refer, someone else to this. But I just kind of pass it on and ask what's going on.
All right, now, how would you go about breaking it into someone if you don't have time to get somebody that you know? how would you alert somebody, or how would you tell somebody, hey, you might want to go to the metaphysical shop and let somebody check you out, or hey, you need to stop by a church because you have a serious problem.
Right.
You know,
I will, if I can, sage them. If not, I will suggest that they have someone sage them and that they call on the angels when they do this.
mm-hmm.
Or I will say that, how have you been feeling lately? Are you a little bit off? Is there something just not quite right? I try to get them to think about, because if they don't acknowledge it, sometimes I feel that the attachments can hide. If they're not acknowledged, and these people are not going to acknowledge the fact that, sorry, they're crazier than a bed bug, or they're normally very sweet, and now they're, vinegar would not even go down their throat because they're so nasty. Um, so I try to bring it up to them gently. And then if they ask, and usually they will not ask about it, they don't want to deal with it, they don't want anything. And then they'll say, well, come to think of it, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would tell them to take a relaxation or a cleanse bath with sea salt, baking soda, and Epsom salt. Don't forget to wash your hair,
Hmm.
because if you don't immerse yourself, it's not going to do any good, because they just move, hide, whatever.
Jared, in dealing with the public in the fashion that you have you heard or learned that there are places that are more active where somebody might pick this kind of stuff up versus not so active?
Absolutely. If with the advancement of our TV and new ghost shows coming out constantly, everybody has gone into this craze, and we're in this era of ghost hunting. And people put themselves in places that normally they may not have, or are out looking for something. Then, in 9 times out of 10, they're finding, whether they realize that they are or not. Just because you walk into a room and can't see something doesn't mean something is
Mm-hmm.
there and does exist. They may be really quiet so they can jump on your back and go home with you and start feeding off your energy like a little vampire.
That's right.
But yeah, there are a lot of different places that are haunted. So, I mean, you could go anywhere essentially and pick up an attachment. Go to the grocery store, and you pick up somebody that comes home with you.
Mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, the people that are out ghost hunting know what they're doing, and they say, oh, I don't know if I can go there, or, I don't want to pick up an attachment. And they're so worried about picking up an attachment, they don't want to bring nothing home with them. So they're haunted places, like, for instance, we'll say Mansfield Reformatory. You're dealing with more mischievous spirits that are going to be the ones that are attaching to you. And again, like we said in another show, this is not a possession. This is an attachment. It's external. They're hopping on your back, feeding off your auric energy, if you will. This is not where they're coming inside of you and taking over like a channel would. A possession's more internal,
Right.
where the attachment's external. So yeah, when you introduce yourself to a haunted house or someplace is haunted, or there's been a murder, or who knows God what, you're introducing yourselves to mischievous spirits that are more than likely going to hitch a ride home with you.
You said something that caught my attention. You said a lot of things that caught my attention. One, I would agree. This is not something that you're going to wake up and your head's going to spin around and you're going to puke green whatever like The Exorcist. These are the mischievous things that ride along because they are looking for something new as well. But you said the ghost hunters will go, well, I don't know if I want to go there because I don't want attachments. Would it stand to reason, just by simply saying magnetics and law of attraction, if you will, that if you go out of the house going, I don't want attachments, I don't want attachments, I don't want, are they going to sense that fear and go, hi, how are you? And
Absolutely.
act just as quickly?
Absolutely. What you seek is what you find. So absolutely, they'll feed off that energy, like Pat was speaking about earlier. They kind of attract towards that light.
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk in and you got someone who's meek and timid, and they're like, oh God, I just don't want anything attached to me, but I'm so curious, I want to be here, I got to do this. Well, look at that, I can just go over there and attack. I get chills when I'm talking about it. Go over there, hop on, and just start feeding away and manipulating this person, so that they're getting, again, that emotional energy that they need, whether it be you're angry one moment, you're having these mood swings, or you're just crying hysterically, or that's what they love, that's what they need. earthbound spirits.
Right.
Now, when we talk about other dimensional beings that have never been in a human form, because there is that thought, there is that school of thought that those things are out there. They don't necessarily have to be demonic in any way, but they can also have that same influence to feed off the energy.
It is one thing because Pat and I, in a previous show, well, we were all talking about how the things attached to items, and we were talking about haunted objects, and it wasn't even anywhere in my room where I do all this stuff, and yet it automatically started playing havoc with all of my electronics and all of my stuff. And that's the kind of thing that you just can't mess up. And I was freaking out, not because I was upset or, going, oh my God, it's in here. I was freaking out because I had considered myself to be in a safe space in my own home. And yet just talking about it brought all that right in. So it brought my attention as I was thinking about this week in this show. I would have to almost assume, because you go to an auction, whatever was living there has, if people have passed away, it's an auction where it's an estate sale. Whoever was there that was feeding whatever was in there, it's going hungry because there's nobody around. So they're going to take the first chance that they can and exit items, spaces, houses, whatever. And they're going to jump on whatever they can. Like little fleas and ticks, if I can put it that way. They're going to jump on anything that they can and take a ride home with somebody new, because there's nobody living previously in the auction area. So if you go to auctions, you go to estate sales and things like this, you need to be able to take a little bit of time and protect yourself before you really go sauntering around. Not only items that you're looking at, but other people that are there.
Yeah.
Seriously, because it'll rub off. You've got people that are coming in that are scoundrels. You've got people that are coming in that are angels in a different form, in a different body. Great people. But you've got people there that are going, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to make a heavy buck and I'm going to screw everybody out of this item right here. Watch.
Yeah.
And that kind of negativity comes across as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask both of you, and I'm going to start with Pat. How would you tell people what small things can they do to protect themselves before they enter these kinds of areas we've talked about, or before they leave their home, or even before they go to work? If they're working in public or working with people that are kind of Debbie Downers, what can they do, in your estimation, to limit that?
I start my day with prayer. I thank my angels and guides for going before me and removing all discords from my path. I say the unity prayer of protection, the light of God surrounds me, the love of God enfolds me, the power of God protects me, the presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. If I'm going someplace and I get the feeling that, I'll say the Lord's Prayer. And I'm so glad you mentioned ticks, because that was what I was picturing in my mind. A tick will feed until it's full. And then what's it do? Drops off, waits for the next thing.
Right.
Yep.
A local grocery store here, it's a Giant Eagle actually. I go in there a lot. They know who I am. They know what I do. And they came here and said, you got to help us. And there was a guy in the back, in the stock area, never did anything but stock. He had gone somewhere. He had gone, I think, to visit friends, and they took him to this old honky tonk bar, from the Depression days. It had been a speakeasy. And they said he came back so different. He was always very calm, cool, and collected. Now he's jittery. He's looking over his shoulder. He's cussing like a sailor. They said, what is wrong with him? And he kept seeing stuff. And I said, well, he may have picked up an attachment or two. Because my feeling is that they will be with you as long as you are serving their purpose.
Absolutely.
And if you're not serving their purpose anymore, or you're like, I'm over this. I'm tired of feeling tired. I'm tired of blah, blah, blah. They'll find somebody else to move on to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all over the place. They're in the grocery store. And especially if you go to old buildings, historical places. Yeah.
And it can be that way. Jared, and again, being a shop owner that you have worked with the public, what are some of the small things that you might be able to tell people? Do this or don't do this. How might they protect themselves?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is just surrounding yourself in a field of light, a light protection. 9 times out of 10, that can be done just through simple meditation. Whether you're listening to a guided meditation, there's lots of them out there, but just visualizing your body being filled with, your heavenly light, your upper world light filling down through your body, like you're a glass of, and as that glass fills up, it comes over the top and starts to overflow around you. You can visualize it having a mirror on the outside. You're in the center, the mirror's on the outside, reflecting everything away from you. So simple visualizations of just protecting yourself go a long way. It goes a long way for your whole day. And you should do that every day because, like you said, the residual energies that kind of wander around from somebody got in an argument over here, this person over here did something, and you have all these negative things just floating around. Yeah, you are like a magnet. You're going to start to absorb that, and if you're really empathic, you're going to start to feel those, and you need to stop and check yourself and say, hey, are these my feelings? Is this me, or is this not me?
Mm-hmm.
But that can be some of the easiest things, is just the meditation. But there's also crystals. You can
Yes.
carry certain protective crystals to put on you. Usually a scapegoat here is usually any black stone, whether it be black tourmaline, jet, obsidian, black kyanite, something along those lines. You can carry with you, and it helps and produces an energy that helps shield and surround you and protect you. So again, it's all about thought. It's all about intention. So when you're putting that stone in your pocket, yeah, it does have that energy, but it's also a reminder that, hey, I'm protected because it's in my pocket. I feel it. My intention is that I'm protected, so therefore I am. So those are some of the best ways. You can also do protective amulets, things that are power sources for you. So if you wear a necklace that has a cross and you're of the Judeo Christian faith, you can wear that because that's your power of protection. That's your symbol of protection. So by putting that on, now I'm safe and protected.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of other ones. You can do crystal pendants, things like that. And the shamanism that I practice, we can make clients warsuardos, they're called. It's a combination of herbs and other things that the person would wear, keep on them, that wards away any negative energy whatsoever. There's lots of things.
I would agree. It's a couple of the things that somebody had told me early on. One of them was actually Pat, who said, anytime that you go somewhere and you're getting ready to come home, before you get in your car, between you and the car door, imagine kind of like a golden white light shower or a mild waterfall of white light that you have to pass through that before
Yeah.
you get in your car.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine it washing away anything that you might have experienced that is negative before you get in your car. That way you don't take it home.
Right.
The other one that someone had told me a while ago, because again, I was starting to work in corporate America and I was having a very difficult time being an empath, trying to work with all these other people, all these emotions, all these things. They said, look, all you've got to do after you get dressed in the morning, look in the mirror, look at yourself, imagine putting on pure white light outer clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else is going to see it, just you. But imagine putting that on and it's light and how it feels, how the cuffs might fit your arms, how it rubs your neck a little bit. And then that helps when you go to work, again, reflecting a lot of the negativity, a lot of the energetics and things like that. For the people that are not quite aware and it's just, and especially in a working environment, if somebody has an argument in an office, manager's office is there, somebody got their rear end chewed out really bad, both people are upset. The minute that door opens, the energy is actually going to come spilling out into the rest of the building. It will try to seek a balance so that it is equally effective everywhere. This and this is part of the law of physics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. You took someone, and if it was you that was doing it, you have taken the energy to form in your mind the words that are going to make the most impactful statement, whether it's harmful, derogatory, or otherwise, and then you vocalized it. So you've used a lot of energy just to get that emotion out of your body into a vocabulary. Well, sound energy is still going to be bouncing around long after your mouth closed, and all that. The rest of the energy is going to be in the air. It didn't just dissipate. And this is what I found with corporate America. A lot of people don't get it. That energy is there. And if you walk by it, you walk through it, you got part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was very few people on the planet, most of them ascended masters, whether you want to talk about Christ or Buddha or anybody else, that could walk through something like that and then come out squeaky clean. The rest of us, sorry, we're not so lucky. It's going to happen. You know?
Like, sorry.
Yes.
I was going to say, liken it to, you don't smoke anymore, but you
Yeah.
go visit friends and they smoke. What happens when you come home? Oh, can't wait to get these clothes off. I got to wash them. Oh, my hair. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Only sometimes you're just not, something's off, but you don't know what's off. You don't know. I didn't feel, you just notice those little wacky things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
it is.
ick.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That ick feeling, that ooh, you know?
How do you keep the dirt off your shoes? You don't. It happens. It's there. It's going to get there, but you got to clean it off. You got to keep it maintained,
Right. Okay, for the people that are in the chat room, I know Shelley had mentioned it once before. I'll mention it just one more time before we go on break. If you have a desire to kind of be part of the overall show this evening, and you'd like to ask a question of our panel here, put an X1 by your name in the chat room. That way we'll be able to see, gather up, and one person at random will be chosen to be able kind of to get spiritual guidance from the three of us here. So go ahead and do that. Put them in the chat room. Right now we're going to go ahead and take a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Divine Awakenings New Age Emporium and Healing Arts Shop. It's the largest locally owned and operated metaphysical retailer in the Sandusky, Ohio Tri-County area. Serving the Firelands region since April of 2014, they're pleased to offer a space that is welcoming, relaxing, and open to everyone. In the Emporium, you will find a variety of unique gifts, special events and services, as well as classes and workshops to soothe your mind, body, and spirit. If you're in the Sandusky, Ohio area, look for Divine Awakenings at 1006 Tiffin Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio. Their phone number is 419-502-9137, and you can find them on Facebook at /Divine Awakenings LLC.
Michael.
Coming back from our short interlude, yes, Pat. See, and here it happens again. Yeah, I'm sitting here talking, and I'm like,
We're not ignoring you.
sure.
We just couldn't hear you.
Coming back from
Right.
our short interview this evening, hold on, Pat. Our topic this evening is attachments, and we're going to talk more about that. But I know Pat's got something that she wants to add in here. Yes, Pat.
Well, what I keep thinking about is 9/11. Remember, people were either very angry or very loving. And if you were kind of like, oh my gosh, what can I do to help? Blah, blah, blah. And then you talk to somebody who was very angry, what happened to you? You know, you kind of, some people turned on a dime. They went from wanting to help to being, whoa, 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 you know, and they were so angry. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like walking through that cloud of cigarette smoke and not realizing how much is sticking to you, you know, as you go by.
I would agree, and that's an excellent analogy for people. You know, if they have grown accustomed to, you know, that they either they don't smoke or they're former smokers, and you walk into a bar that used to be absolutely polluted with cigarette smoke. You know, it makes a huge difference to things. Let's take a moment or a few minutes and help people understand kind of a severity level, if you would. And I'll start at the very bottom because I was talking about those little globs of energy that you might pick up either in the work environment or at the mall or the shopping center or being out in public. You know, and sometimes if you've got people that are upset at home, it happens at home as well. You know, so that's like the bottom level of what might attach to you. The only issue with that is if you don't take a few minutes to try to cleanse your outer self, that stuff stacks up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And what people would go, you know, I started this week, I felt great, and it's Thursday, and I am so run down, and I am so upset and dejected. Well, folks, you have a ton of this garbage sticking to you. Take a few minutes, get rid of it. Jared, what would you say would be a step up from that? Or in a severity, what is progressing towards absolute horrible area?
Well, the best way to kind of describe it would be if you stop eating. If you stop eating, you're going to start to notice physical changes within yourself. First of all, you're going to start to get tired, you know, and you're just going to waste away. So if you think of it in those terms, that's basically what starts to happen energetically with you. Everything's composed of energy and comprised of energy. So if we're depleting ourselves of our vital energy source, you're start to going to have other issues physically. Your body's going to start to change because every physical impact, disease, things like that, has some energetic tie associated with it. That's, you know, creating this change. So it can get ugly if people don't deal with it, if they don't acknowledge it, if they don't realize or start to make a change within themselves, that they're not going to allow themselves to be depleted of this energy and start looking for outside sources to rid themselves of whatever's going on. Because there's going to come a point where you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, what is going on? I have nothing necessarily physically going on that's creating these symptoms. I'm not crazy here. What could be going on? So sometimes it just takes that extra help from somebody to identify and for you to realize. Some people will never get the help that they need because they'll never acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to eventually deplete you where it could affect your life in the long run.
And that I would agree because it does. No matter what we tend to do, no matter what we would like to think that we are in control of, it will have an effect on you. And consequently, it will have an effect on people around you, family members, loved ones. I mean, this stuff doesn't just stick to you. It's kind of like being coated with grease. You rub up against somebody, you get too close to them. If you're wearing pure white, yeah, you're going to have a big grease stain on whatever you're wearing.
Yeah.
Pat, what would you say would be another step going after that that might be heading into a worse kind of category?
Was that for Pat or me? I'm sorry.
Pat.
Okay.
I would say their friends start to notice, I don't, why something's different, something's not, and sometimes it takes that for people to realize because this stuff sometimes it can be one or two things. It can be a train that hits you and you're going, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I don't understand. And that may take a couple days or a week. Or it's so gradual that, you know, you're walking past a mirror and you look and it's like, oh, I look old, or I look tired, or I look, man, what happened to me? I got lots of sleep last night. And it's just sometimes it's very subtle, and sometimes it's just like a Mack truck smash. And I notice it in my energy. I will notice it right away in my energy that I'm like I said, well, I'm tighter than an 8-day clock and I just can't stop, or I just want to sleep. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want it dark. I want it. So it's very interesting.
I would really say it, and this just kind of in wrapping up, and you'll have to let me know what the two of you think. Base yourself on what you feel, because you are the best barometer of what your body is doing and how it is being affected. Just like if you eat too much, you've learned over a period of time that if you eat too much, you gorge yourself, you're going to be bloated, distended, you're going to be grumpy, you're going to be cranky, you're going to have to go to the bathroom, and then it's downhill. But when you feel that there's not something right, take the time to try to cleanse yourself. If you feel like it's a little worse than that, stop and see somebody that has some sage. If you notice that you are doing things that you typically would not do,
Mm-hmm.
stop and see somebody that has a little bit more capability to help you out, whether it's a shop owner or a shaman. If things really feel bad and you are having experiences that... See, I don't want to go off into Hollywood land because I don't want people to take this kind of as a, oh, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
if you start to have seriously negative emotions, reactions, you're snapping at people, you have horrible intentions to do to people, you have feelings that you know are not yours, I very much would tell you, stop, visit your local pastor, stop and see someone as quickly as you can, and let them know. 3 weeks ago I was at this one place and I came home, and since then I haven't really felt well. Now, I will caution you, when you get to that kind of a bad negative crap, you're going to find yourself going, I really need to go talk to the pastor, and then things will happen around you to help stop you from going to see the pastor, or you will find yourself talking yourself out of it, or you will immediately become ill, sick, something. If it's that bad, it's going to be adverse to going to see somebody to make it better.
Right.
In the same fashion, if you go to see somebody to get a sage cleansing, you go, yeah, I need to go see, just like Jared, I need to go see Jared because I need cleansed. Your body's going to have some bit of a negative reaction to that because whatever's attached to you doesn't want to go through that process. So if you think about it and you got this, by all means, go do it, and do it as soon as you can. But again, these are all different levels. Typically, you never get to the end that would scream Hollywood kind of nasty garbage. That's an extreme, way out on one side. But you're always going to have that, I feel so run down, I feel... Does that make sense to both of you?
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you mentioned sage, and you remember in Virginia Beach when we would come back from break or from lunch or whatever, they would use the tincture bells. Am I saying that right, Jared?
Tincture.
To
Mm-hmm.
singing bowls. I've had singing bowls used to help do that. So they're just, if you don't, people, I can't stand sage. No, you don't have to use sage.
Yeah.
You just don't,
I wanted to add something too, real quick. The whole concept of mind, body, and spirit, it's keeping yourself in check. It's finding that balance. So if it physically nothing's wrong with you, mentally you're in check, but you're not sure what's going on. I mean, there's always a source for something. You kind of got to look at all aspects, and you have to have a balance of all of that. And I also wanted to add too, in one of John Edwards' books, he speaks of his mentor who was his teacher, and they were driving down the road one day, and they passed a mental hospital. And I believe it was John that looked at his teacher and said, or the teacher was one of the other that said, I bet half, if not all, those people in there can do exactly what we do, but we can deal with it. So with that being said, it's like, yeah, things can get and go awry. And if you're never willing to deal with the spiritual side of things and keep yourself in balance, in check, cleansed, protected, yeah, things can start to happen to you, and you'll start to have no control over it anymore. So keep that in mind.
That's a really good point, because I would almost agree 100%. There are so many people that are gifted, capable, active metaphysically on the planet. 70% of them don't want to admit it or are not aware of it. 20% are aware and kind of just let things happen, to where you've got the other 10% to turn into the readers and the healers and the things like this, so it's out there, it's prevalent. There's no doubt about it. Do either of you have anything that you wanted to add before I wrap up this side?
When Jared was talking about the mental institution, I was thinking about Ho'oponopono and Dr. Hugh Lynn from The Secret and many other things, and how he worked at this hospital for the criminally insane, and they couldn't keep staff, and it was a terrible place to be, because they either physically beat them up or would do stuff. And he went there, and all he said was, he read their files. He felt there was something in the ancestry that caused these problems. He said, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you." And it was less than 10 years, I believe, that the place had to lay off staff because they were releasing people back to the public. They were clearing whatever was wrong with them, and there were only 2 that were never released back into the public.
Wow.
Who remained incarcerated in some form. Fascinating. So energy is a very powerful thing.
It is.
Massively so. Okay, we are going to segue right over into our spiritual guidance side of the show. This is what we started doing to wrap up our evening together as a panel with all of our people, the guests that are in the chat rooms. One person has been selected this evening, and that person is Megan Christina. Megan Christina, if you would, I know that there is a delay between you hearing us and us being able to read, but in the chat room, if you would, go ahead and type your question out that you would like to ask the 3 of us, and then we will see what comes about from all of that. But this is our spiritual guidance side. We've decided to take the last little bit of time in our show in the evenings to be able to address somebody's concern, somebody's question, somebody's thought, because we truly want all of this that we're trying to do to be interactive, helpful, educational, but to bind all of us together more as a tighter group of people that we can understand, we can go places, ask things, not be worried about, not be afraid of, and not think that we have grown horns and tails and, oh my God. Nobody's going to look at you crazy or foolish when you start saying, look, here's what I'm experiencing. As Pat had mentioned, and even Jared, they're done throwing people in the loony bin because they stopped and they said, well, I see dead people. Well, it has become enough commonplace item that people can actually learn to deal with it, cope with it a little bit better. Okay, here's what Megan had to ask. She said, if you are suffering an ongoing illness or have had recent surgery Could you be more at risk of an attachment? Jared, I'm going to start with you.
In my belief, no. The result from an attachment could be those scenarios. Just because you have a sickness going on, yeah, it may lower you to a depressive level if it's really starting to affect you physically and affecting your mental health. Yes, if you have that lowered inhibition, it's easier for them to jump in and attach just because you're more readily available for them to manipulate, if that makes any sense. So not just because you've had a surgery or that you are sick makes you more vulnerable to an attachment. It's just you have to kind of check yourself and see where you're at and notice the changes that you're experiencing within yourself and saying, wait a minute, this isn't me. I need to figure out what's going on.
Pat, I'll put you up next.
Okay. I agree with Jared, and I like to, when I have an illness or I've had surgeries, I thank the angels for being with me during the healing process. And if I have anything that feels a little different, I go into it and ask, is this mine or is this someone else's? Because sometimes, I don't want to say we get caught up in the fear, but we get so concerned about, oh my gosh, I had a surgery, I might get clots, I might, and so we get in that fear mode and we forget to say, whoa, wait a minute, I'm protected, I'm okay, I need to focus on getting better, I need to trust myself and the angels and the powers that be. And yeah, I think it's just one of those. I think we just think, they always got to tell us every little side effect that could go wrong. And so you're like, well, I really need this, but oh my God, they may kill me if I have it. But if I don't have it, I might kill myself because I'm so frustrated. So yeah, I think it's just very much important that you take care of yourself and you trust yourself and don't get caught up in the minutia of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
And I'm right behind with both of you on that. I don't having any kind of a surgery or some kind of an ongoing illness would weaken your immune system. I'm no doctor. I'm no medical specialist by any means. It's just an understanding of health, if you will. So your immune system may become compromised at some point, especially depending upon the surgery or the type of ongoing illness. Cancer patients might have a rougher time dealing with an attachment, if you will, but at the very same time, that attachment may not want to currently be on some person like that because their life is already fading or it is already degraded, or there's different aspects of that. The only thing I would tell you, honestly, Megan, is when you are thinking about something like that, if you are going in for surgery, if you are looking at, you've got pneumonia and it's going to be around for a little while, try to be aware of your surroundings. If you're going into the hospital, make sure that you take time thoughtfully to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
But keep an eye on your surroundings. If you are stuck in an emergency room, you might want to pay a little more attention about that. Or if you are in an intensive care unit, if there is something, it's just being aware of where your physical body is at. You might need to pay a little bit more attention to your own physical form because something around you, an environment in itself, may not be as healthy as you would like it to be. Don't take that verbatim, but it's one thing that your environment that you are in has a massive effect on not only your body but the things that are there.
That brings up a good point, Michael. If your illness is taking you into the hospital, a hospital is a cesspool of spiritual energy floating around. There's spirits walking all over in a hospital. So yeah, you could be more prone being in that environment to establishing an attachment. Absolutely, in that case.
It's the one thing. People remember that hospitals are a place where you go to get better. Hospitals are also the place where people end up dying, where people are, for lack of better words, incarcerated in a mental asylum, if they have a mental ward, or also the places that have the ICU units. to where people that have you have a smattering of so many different environments within one physical building that you have to be cautious of what you're doing and why. And as Jared said, you walk into a hospital that has not been in use for 10 years, I guarantee you're going to feel things, you are going to see things, you are going to hear things. Hands down. It's one of those places. Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, and my focus is to call in the angels and St. Michael and ask them to be with me and protect me from any and all energy that is not for my highest and best good. And please don't allow me to get caught up in someone else's drama. I need to take care of myself. I need to keep myself.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I kind of do. Does this qualify, folks, as one of those sorry, not sorry kind of things? I keep seeing that stuff on Facebook. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Passive aggressive.
Yeah, probably. You say that you take the time, that you pray, that you call in the angels. I agree, hands down, perfect. What would you tell an atheist that does not have that belief?
I would tell them that there's a higher power, whatever you choose to put on it. Like the sunlight is a wonderful power. It's there. It comes from the sun. But to just know that no matter what, there is somehow, some way, something, some energy that is working to keep us safe and happy and healthy and provide the highest and best for us.
See, now that's an awesome answer. Thank you. Because there are many times that I run into people that go, hey, I'm an atheist. I don't believe a damn thing that you're going to say about heaven or hell. Okay. Where do we step off in a polite direction from here? And that's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
My thing is, I always say, that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way. And we're all entitled to our own opinion. So whatever works for you may not work for me. But if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. It's not my job to change your mind. It's just my job to suggest that, maybe you appreciate the sunlight a little bit more tomorrow when you see it.
Right.
I've got one thing. I'm going to start our closing this evening because there's been something that's been on my mind since we were talking about energy and attachments and things like that. If people would just chill out for a second and understand, if you take the universe and encapsulate it somehow, understand the universe is like 99% empty space. Dark energy, we're talking about dark matter and dark energy. Dark matter that they have found, like antimatter, takes up about 27% of the actual universe. Dark energy, which is a different form of that matter, takes up 68% of our universe. But here's the one that killed me. Our planet, our sun, all the things that are in our solar system, every galaxy that we have ever seen, looked at in a picture, everything that is out there, everything that any instrument has ever detected that has matter or mass, all of that only adds up to 5% of our total universe. So when you think about what positivity is, like the Earth, yeah, folks, we're people floating around a rock circling a giant fireball, okay? But everything that we have ever seen, that we could touch, that is tangible, only comprises 5% of our entire universe. So there are things out there that we don't know, that we can't see, that we have no comprehension of, but that pervades what we do here on Earth as well. So when you go out in the world, be mindful of your surroundings. Jared, I'll let you. What are your final thoughts for the evening?
Protection, protection, protection. If you're worried about catching an attachment, always just start a daily practice of protecting yourself. It's also a good idea in the morning to, check yourself, assess yourself, cleanse your energy, and at night, do the same thing. Cleanse your energy, but always start with your day with protection.
Smart. Very good advice. Pat, your closing
The
thoughts for the
now
evening?
deceased Ray Buckland, that wrote many books, always told us, when your feet hit the floor in the morning, you put yourself in a bubble of white light. And you can call that white light anything you like, but just call it your protection. And just know that it goes with you everywhere you go, and it keeps many things from attaching to you. Try to stay as positive as you can. I'm not saying be Pollyanna, but fear is false energy appearing real. So if you're afraid of everything, you're attracting it because the universe hears, well, that's all they talk about. We know people who are always victims, and what do they talk about? Nothing ever goes right for me. I never cancel. Thank you. I have all the things that I need. Not that I desire, but that I need. It's all provided for me, and I have to trust that it's always going to be that way.
Very well said.
That wisdom.
It's almost one of those things that you want to stop and say, Amen.
Right?
Yeah, there you go.
And this coming from Reverend Pat Beers. Imagine that. Well, folks, everybody in the chat room, and for the people that are going to be listening to this on the podcast, we appreciate your stopping and checking us out and listening, taking time to interact with us. If you want, you can check us out on Facebook at /Terra Turas. We also have our own website, which is www.terraturas.com. And we're going to be adding a few more things as we come up through the next couple of weeks. So check back. We're going to be moving into some brand new kind of groundbreaking things for us in our show. But in the meantime, thank you all for joining us. I hope that everybody has a great week and a weekend, and we'll see you again next week on the next edition of Terra Turas.